Ah oui. Yes.
Yeah, go ahead. And hello and welcome to the whatever episode of Groovy Podcast. I think that's the most produced episode ever. We have tons of equipment here, and I have two very dear guests. The legends.
The legends.
The legends
Yeah,
of
it's better than
Groovy
legacy.
community.
We're trying to find good titles for ourselves.
Yeah. So Guillaume Laforge, still the leader of the
No,
of
there's
the
no
Groovy project.
lead at Apache. There's no.
No, you're
I
good.
think I have a microphone, so I think I'm good. No, there's no lead anymore. It's a community, you know.
Chair.
Yeah, I'm the chair
Here you go.
of the project management committee. So, but it's pretty much just a secretarial role where you tell the board, okay, we had that many numbers, we did this, we did that release, and that kind of stuff. That's basically it. My role. It's not really a lead role.
Okay, so secretary of Groovy, and this guy, I have no idea why we keep inviting him to the Groovy podcast. Well, yeah, no, for the I guess past achievements and contribution.
Exactly.
So yeah, Cedric Champeau.
So I'm a member of the Groovy PMC. So I'm not the
management.
secretary, so not doing the administrative
Yeah.
stuff.
Lucky
but
you.
I'm just
Lucky you.
making sure that Groovy goes in the right direction.
And for you, it means clean out the remainings of Groovy from Gradle codebase.
And riding the Groovy build to Kotlin.
Yeah, that's what nowadays are Groovy in the right direction according to Cedric.
But even Ken is going into the Kotlin podcast.
Yeah,
What's
no,
going
well,
on?
well, Ken is Kotlin Ken, you know,
Yeah,
we saw
that's
it coming.
Kotlin.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so Ken is officially banned from this podcast, as you can see. He's not here because he's doing Kotlin podcast instead.
Right.
And we're live from Devoxx France.
Yeah, Devoxx.
Paris, there is, it's
Yeah,
written
it's
right here.
written
You
on the
see
wall.
yeah, it's all like,
It's all
it
on
was
the
almost
wall.
staged.
Yeah.
Did we have any Groovy content at all this year?
Well, except perhaps you with a bit of. No, do you actually mention Groovy at all in the?
Yeah, so I'm not doing
The Gradle
100% Groovy, so I'm doing the Gradle
The
talks.
Gradle talks.
And in the Gradle talks, I
There's-
show Groovy and Kotlin, but both of them. So
So I have a talk on machine learning APIs from the Google Cloud Platform, and I have a couple of samples. Perhaps I'll be showing them. I'm not sure yet, which are written in Groovy, but that's not a Groovy talk per se.
So there is no Groovy content at all
Exactly.
at Devoxx France. What is all means? I mean, I'm not sure I like where all this is going.
I mean, it's not hype anymore. So I mean, there are many new topics to cover. On I don't know. What's the hot topic of
Kotlin?
the conference?
Kotlin?
Is there much Kotlin?
By the way,
I don't
yeah,
even
there is
think
no,
there's a-
in microservices.
Yeah, microservices, but is there even a Kotlin talk?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, there
right
is?
now.
Oh,
One is
right now.
happening right now. And there was a university yesterday.
Okay.
So introduction.
So I missed them.
I wonder why.
Yeah. I don't care. It looks too much like Groovy, you know. So.
Yeah, no, we know already. They took everything from Groovy, so it's basically the same. Why would we even
Groovy,
bother?
Java.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Should
Yeah, so
we,
why,
should we
why-
draw
why-
any conclusions about
I don't
the
know.
state of
It's
Groovy?
No, it's not so much the state of Groovy. It's more that I mean there are new shiny toys of the day, and I mean in the past we've had tons and tons of talks about Groovy, so people are used to it, and it's mature, and there's. I mean, we also don't have necessarily big, breaking news to announce, like super incredible new feature that no other languages have. So perhaps it's less newsworthy. So conference committees also think that it's not worth showing on stage. I don't know.
So yeah, regarding those all new features, they are coming, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's the new parrot parser for once, which has got all those new the new syntax elements from more recent versions of Java, for example. and it was really needed to rewrite the parser because as soon as we wanted to make any changes to the grammar, basically, or well, adding just a new keyword is okay, but doing more drastic changes, like supporting the Java X constructs, the lambdas and so on, that would have been a nightmare without a rewrite of the parser. But we had been talking about rewriting the parser for years and years. And it's already been rewritten twice, so I think that's going to be the third rewrite of the parser. So there was
Cedric, tell me, Groovy and Java 9 modular, all this stuff. I mean, you look at it from both directions. You know Groovy obviously very well, and you are too much familiar with all the horrors of Java modularity from your Gradle experience.
Yes, that's correct. So we are basically in a batch today with regard to Java 9 support. So what happened is that you can already run Groovy on Java 9. So it's not a problem of running, or even Java 10 now, it supports running on Java 10. So I think the latest release, 2.4.15 supports Java 10. We also support that for Gradle. But when you run, you get all those warnings. You have warnings which are really frightening, saying, yeah, we do illegal access to whatever from cache class. And this is something that scares users, and I can understand that.
and we had people on the mailing list saying, "Hey, but it doesn't run."
Yeah.
Someone saying it doesn't run. It does. It's just a warning.
It does.
It's
just
a warning.
warnings. But actually, typically for Gradle, it is very frightening because you get tons of those warnings in the log. So, and there's no real way to remove them. And the reason for the real reason for that message to appear is that we have a language which was primarily dynamic, so we need to build a class model, and we do that using reflection, etc. And one way to make it fast is to get all the reflection model in one go. And for that we do one call which fails in Java. And actually we could fix that. We could use one call per method or whatever, but it would be much slower to build that model, so it could impact performance. So today what we chose, well, actually we didn't choose anything in the Groovy development right now, so we're just in a batch situation where we don't have the API in the JDK to make what we want. And if we change that to use the right way to do it in the new Java idioms, basically it's going to be slow. So what do we do? I mean,
That's a good question. So what do we do?
So I don't have the answer. I don't think I can take that decision alone or just with the PMC. It's also a decision from the community. Obviously, if we make Groovy startup 10 times slower, it's going to be a problem. It's going to be a problem for Gradle. It's going to be a problem for grades. It's going to be a problem for many people. And that's just one aspect of the Java 9 plus supports, because the other one is modular. And here we're not talking about running Gradle, Groovy, grades on Java 9. It's about having Groovy as a module.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this is a total different story. This is something which we have absolutely no development started to do that.
What it will take?
So it would take breaking binary compatibility, basically.
And it's been something that's been dear to our hearts to have a language that's binary compatible, and perhaps it also slowed our development as well, because there are things we would have loved to do that we never did because we never wanted to break our users' code. And so now, what should we do? I mean, at some point, I think we'll have to do it anyway, and we'll have, because that's the big major version. So, okay, this time, for once in the life, well, sometimes we have some breaking changes, minimal breaking changes, and usually that's for good reasons, because of bugs, because of something. But this one is, it's more complicated, and I think Groovy 3 is really the best place to do it, best time.
Okay, but I think that's just, it's not a technical problem, it's a matter of decision and more of like, of
Wow.
going forward, okay, we break here, we go forward, and we know how to do it technically. So that's kind of a nominal decision. But what I'm worried about is all the illegal access, right, that you spoke about earlier. And you said that you don't know how to proceed or what to do. Guillaume, any insights from you about it? Because we cannot
No.
just ignore it and say, well, we'll see.
Who
because
cares?
yeah, no, in some point of time, the decision of only giving warnings will, they will stop with it and it will stop.
So maybe I can talk about that. So
yeah.
this warning is for now just a warning. So you get the warning for Java 9, Java 10, Java 11. Apparently, it's also going to be a warning, but at some point in the future, it's going to fail.
Yeah,
So
completely.
no application is going to run because there will be no way to turn that off. So it is a security for the JVM to disable that illegal access, but it's just
That's much of a bigger problem than deciding we are going to break and change 3.
Yeah.
What is going on with that? Who is talking about it? Who is thinking about the solutions? What are the possible solutions?
I don't know. You probably know that best than me.
Yeah, so as I said, there are a couple of solutions. So one is change the way the metaclass system is initialized, basically. So actually, if you use static compilation today in Groovy, you don't care that much about that problem because it's very rare that you depend on the order of initialization of metaclasses, etc. So we talked about changing the way the metaclass system is initialized in the static compile mode, and this would solve a problem for a category of users. So probably the most recent ones.
You keep going.
Yeah. And the second aspect is what do we do for the dynamic version of Groovy? And today, you know that we actually have two different maps. So one is based on pre-Java 8 era, so it's going the call side caching stuff that was implemented to be fast before we have that invoke dynamic instruction.
Right.
And you have the optional invoke dynamic runtime that probably nobody uses.
Just because
Yeah.
we didn't see any significant performance benefits.
Well, that's one aspect. The second aspect is more that actually it's hard to use because in the real world you have a library and it depends on Groovy and it doesn't depend on Groovy Indie. So you have two flavors of Groovy and 99% of users use Groovy, not the Groovy
the
Indie
invoke
version.
dynamic one. Yeah.
So
does the indie version actually solves the problem of the
So-
modules?
it would be, I think, cleaner to drop the old call side caching stuff
And just use
rely
that one by
only
default.
on the new JVM primitives to do that, but we would still have the problem of how we get the initial metadata. So I had actually a chat with someone from the JDK team at Java 1 last year, and I was discussing this problem, and it was mentioning the fact that actually, yes, what we do is a valid use case, and maybe in that use case we shouldn't throw a warning. So maybe the solution is from the JDK team, maybe not, maybe they're not going to implement that, and we have to find a different way to do things. And maybe it's going to be just Groovy is going to initialize slower, and if it is so, maybe we need to put some efforts into lazy initialization instead of doing everything eagerly. So we'll start up. But it's some work. I mean, it is really work to do. So.
Yeah, but I don't see how we can work around it, right? At some point of time we will face this problem, not in a matter of, well, those are warnings, just ignore them, because it won't work anymore.
At some point, yes.
Okay, so that sounds challenging to me. And
We accept requests.
yeah, exactly. That's the ultimate.
Instead of spending time with the Groovy Podcast, produce pull requests.
Now that's important because now much more people know that they should produce pull requests.
Yes,
Here we go.
true.
Yeah. And so, do we know if anyone actually look at it, work at it, maybe Dr. King or someone else from the. So I think that the biggest dependency today on Groovy in terms of people need it and work on it full time will be OCI and the Grails project, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So they are the most interested party in moving it forward.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we have Dr. Paul King there working full time in OCI on Groovy, as opposite to all the rest of the
Yeah.
team that either develop
We used to
Grails
work
or
full time. We used to work full time.
right. And so as opposite to the rest of the team who works on Grails or consulting Grails, he actually was hired to move Groovy forward
Yep.
to support the needs of Grails, right?
Yes.
So I guess it will kind of roll onto his plate, just because no one else
Steps up.
works on it.
Not necessarily. So if you think of it, who are the biggest Groovy users today? So you have Grails, you have Gradle, and you have Jenkins.
Right.
And I think it's going to be a much bigger problem for Jenkins than it is for us, because at some point they will have to run Jenkins on Java 9, Java 10, etc. So this is going to be a pressure for those companies to do something. What they decide, I don't know. Maybe it's going to be we drop Groovy support, we choose something else, we hire someone who is a Groovy expert to fix the problem, whatever, but someone has to do something. You know that Gradle actually is moving towards Kotlin for the DSL, so it's probably going to be less a problem for us, but for other companies it's not. So I mean, there are lots of companies out there, so we're just talking about Jenkins, CloudBees, we're talking about OCI, but what about the users? I mean, they live in companies that use Groovy every day and they are going to migrate to Java 9 at some point too, so the community has to make a decision too. So that's why I was saying that I cannot take the decision alone and Guillaume cannot do that either. It is what we can do as PMC members is just here are the consequences of your choices and the consequences of not doing any choice. So
do we have that in some kind of public document?
it is on the
for
mailing list,
discussion?
basically.
Mailing list, yeah.
The Apache way is to do all the discussions openly on the mailing list. So, if you will, if it didn't happen on the mailing list, it
didn't
doesn't
happen.
exist.
It doesn't exist. Yeah.
Okay, and there is a thread on the mailing list that goes about that.
So we have more than one
More
thread.
than one
Yeah,
thread.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. From what I hear is like critical problem that will become more critical as
Yeah.
time passes, and that's the time to ring the bell.
It is more than the time to ring the bell because Java 9 is already out, Java 10 is already out, and Java 11 is out
Not far away.
in 6 months from
Yeah.
now. So.
There are like builds that we're gonna run now.
So, and really, I want to emphasize that it is already an issue, even if it's just a warning, because we get bug reports and say, "Hey guys, I started Gradle, and it breaks." It doesn't. It's just written warning, and
yeah.
you get that
It
warning
breaks.
from the
No, it's not
JVM.
breaking.
So we could hide that, but then it means that potentially we hide errors which are legitimate from user code. So. And so actually, that's something that happened at some point. The Groovy codebase had, hard-coded the fact that it shouldn't throw the errors when you start Groovy console on JDK 9, and I was saying, no, please don't do that. I mean, the community has to realize that there is a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And those negotiations with the JDK team about declaring it as a legit usage, where that stands. I mean, you mentioned you had one conversation in Java 1. Is there like the route that we try to pursue as well? Is there a mailing list thread about that?
So the usual way to do that is also through the mailing list. So there's the Jigsaw mailing list, there's the Lambda Dev mailing list, depending on what topic you cover. And So we should do that. But before going to them and say, hey, we need to do something for this, we need to have discussed the solutions, the potential solutions. So typically there's I don't know, I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce his name, but Uwe from the Elasticsearch project typically, so former Lucien Carmida, I think it's a Lucien PMC. So he did a lot of work in helping us understand what we can do with the method handles APIs typically to do that. And he came to the same conclusion as us, that even if you do that the right way, you still get the warnings. So it is,
Too bad.
yeah, it is a bit annoying. And but I wouldn't appreciate as a JDK maintainer to have someone coming to me and saying, hey, please remove that warning or do whatever because that's shitty or whatever. If actually I don't understand the problem completely.
Yeah, you need to articulate why you think that this use case is legit.
Yes, and I want to make sure we don't have any other solutions before, and that's part of the discussion. And but the hard reality is that it takes time to do these investigations.
Yeah. So just to summarize, what I hear is that we have a problem, and that's kind of the bad news. The good news are we know more or less where to move and what to do. And again, the bad news, we don't have much resources to do that.
That's correct.
Correct.
That's a very good summary.
Yeah.
Okay, so with that, we will just remind that we do accept pull requests. Hopefully that will solve it. No, but I mean, I think that we need to get more active in the discussion first, right? The research that you mentioned, and
take the right decision.
yeah, and knowing what's going on. So I invite all 5 of our listeners to join the discussion on the mailing list. And Ken, hey Ken.
among the 5.
Yeah, of course.
Oh, cool.
And join the discussion in the mailing list and influence the future of Groovy. Make sure that we actually have a future, because that sounds like an existential threat. And
As I said, worst case, Groovy is going to be slower. Worst case.
no, but the worst case
It's
is,
not going to not work. I mean, we could have a patch that just
But-
makes it slower.
That's already not the worst case. Worst case is no one does nothing.
Yeah.
Well,
it's unlikely to
Yeah,
happen.
it's unlikely.
Well,
I mean, if
no,
nobody research a solution or investigate new options, it means that at some point we're going to take the route of doing the slow solution, and it's
Okay.
going to work around that.
Okay. So at least we know that we will have some working solution down the road.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's not as bad as not
Worrisome.
doing anything.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you very much,
Thank you.
gentlemen. Thank you, Guillaume. Thank you, Cedric. And have a fruitful remaining of Devoxx. You still have talks to do?
Yep, certainly.
And tomorrow.
And and myself, we have a talk with Ray later today.
Cool.
So let's go and write some slides. It's about time, I guess.
It's about time.
Thank you very much, and bye bye.
See you soon. Bye bye.